Hi, and welcome to this month's Mortgage Broker broadcast. This is the first episode where we've changed things up slightly with the Mortgage Broker broadcast now. It is now a monthly podcast. What are the changes that happened? Not really a great deal. We're now focusing on guest only. That's why it's changed up to recording one episode every single month with a guest. Similar sort of format as before, quite relaxed, informal, no agendas, just talking to people within the industry, talking to brokers, business owners, people within the industry who specialize topics and subjects that they talk about. As I say, the mortgage broker broadcast won't change just purely from a monthly point of view, purely from a guest only point of view. And this is the first one that we've done. I'm now doing a daily podcast, which is called The Morning Mindset. I will expand a lot in terms of what that's all about as we move forward. But the reason why I'm doing that is I wanted to do something which I just wanted to offer more than a weekly chat show host to the kind of podcast. I wanted to do something sort of daily, helping people sort of set up the day, take action, have impact, and still talking about things that I've learned. I've been running my business now for 7 years, been an administrator for quite a lot longer than that. But what I wanted to do is just have sort of share, like talk about unique challenges within the industry or about being self-employed as well, and just exploring, just having more impact on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, I will talk a lot more about the morning mindset as the weeks come on before the launch, which is on the 1st of July. But I just want to be clear, it's called the morning mindset, but it's not one of those sort of, well, the reason why I call it that is because I think it's important how you start your day. It's not like the 5 a.m. club or anything like that. It doesn't matter what time you start your day. It's about when you do start your working day, how you start it and having impact and taking action and all the rest of it. And there's a lot of other things within that as well. But like I said, I'll be sharing a lot more about the podcast as that moves closer to the 1st of July. And yeah, so this month's podcast, as it now should be. My guest this month is Chris Hazell from Chris Hazell Mortgages. The reason why I wanted to get Chris onto the podcast is that Chris been a broker now for a few years, joined at a certain time, went straight into self-employed mortgage broking, which I'll explore and talk a lot about. And he's got like a set mindset with regards to what he's done, how he's achieved it, where he wanted to get to talk about where he is now, and talk as well about the future and what the future looks like for him and his business. He gives a very honest account, which is what I expected from Chris, nothing different, because he's quite a very open, honest kind of person. And now let's just get Chris Hazell onto the podcast. So welcome onto the podcast, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Craig. Yeah, very good. Thank you. How you doing?
Good, yeah, good. Thank you. Finally, we get you on the podcast. It's been a while coming, I think, this one.
Yeah, we tried a while ago, didn't we? And I had Wi-Fi issues, and yeah, but here we are, ready to go.
Finally got you onto the podcast. Finally got you onto the podcast. Obviously, I know a bit about your background, your history, and things like that. But I'm obviously like excited to get you on the podcast and sort of share with the people that listen and subscribe more about you and walk through your sort of journey, really, from how you started in financial services, where you are, and how you got to where you are now, and a bit about the future as well. But I'm sure we've got plenty to talk about and no agenda, and we're just going to have a chat. So, first of all, for those people that don't know who you are, do you want to do a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Chris Hazell Mortgages. So yeah, I've been mortgage advising for coming up on 4 years now. Um, and in terms of getting into it, I guess like quite a lot of people sort of fell into it, but sort of had a plan as well. Um, uh, Came out of university with a politics degree, so no relevance to financial services. But
Do you know what? That is unique. Chris, to be fair, you're the first person I've ever spoken. Normally, it's like law degrees are quite big in mortgage broking, but yeah, politics. Wow.
politics, I just had a really good politics teacher at school, and so I wanted to carry. He enthused me in the subject, and so I just wanted to carry on with it. And yeah, did another 3 years at university with no intention really of going down the political route. But had 3 years at university and enjoyed it, and came out not knowing what I wanted to do. So sort of mucked around for a couple of years with a couple of jobs. Worked in the family business for a year, went on to the Majestic Wine graduate program, and then went traveling for a bit. And then when I came back, that was more when I sort of started to focus, I guess, a bit more on having a career and what I wanted to do, really. And that stage got into sales, so I was in recruitment. So I was recruiting estate agents down in London, so all across sort of central London, recruiting estate agents from big estate agencies down there, and then eventually recruited myself after a couple of years of doing it. I sell the job enough that you start to believe, yeah, sounds pretty good, sounds like fun, and so moved into a estate agency and worked for an independent firm in southeast London, one of my good clients when I was a recruiter. And from there, sort of rose up through the ranks, was managing a branch, and then when we moved out of London to start our family, I moved from them to Hamptons in North London, and had a year there, but I was already sort of coming to the end of my time with estate agency. With our first child, 6 days a week was no longer really what I wanted to do. So I started to look at ways that I could get out of the industry. But what I was originally looking at doing was financial advice, and I started doing my exams for that, so the RO exams, and interviewed for a few sort of financial advice jobs, but was struggling with lack of experience, basically. So a route of getting some experience was to go down the mortgage broker route. So that's sort of how I got into it originally. And then once I got into it, didn't want to do any more exams to become fully financial advice certified. And I've just enjoyed mortgages because I've got the knowledge from property, from doing estate agency and seeing that whole process through. And so then since then started in an estate agency, self-employed in an estate agency. So it's a bit of a funny role. It was around COVID, so they didn't want to take the risk of employing someone essentially. So it worked well for me because it meant that I could have that flexibility to work from home as well as going into the branch and spend more time at home and helping with the kids and stuff like that. And it worked really well in that. I could sort of start to grow a client bank. There wasn't too much risk, or the risk was minimised in being self-employed because leads were being provided to me quite regularly. As we know, the market didn't exactly slow down during COVID, so it was still pretty busy. So had lots of leads, built up a bit of a client bank, and then the key bit really for me taking the next step was they allowed me to sort of create my own brand, build my own website, and start generating my own leads. So that worked really well. I did have a short period in insurance before I moved into the estate agency role. Sort of telephone-based life insurance sales that didn't go that well for me. I wasn't there for long, but taught me a bit about the insurance world, which carried through, but also taught me that was not the type of selling that I wanted to do, and that mortgages with protection was more what was I was looking for. So obviously then once I was able to grow my own brand and build my website, start driving leads to driving reviews and things like that to my website, and then generating leads through it. And then I joined you, of course, Craig, about a year ago. Probably coming up on a year ago now.
Coming for a year, yeah.
And working under my brand, my way, and haven't looked back, and it's been really good. So last year was a tough year, as I'm sure it was for a number of people at the back end of last year, and but this year started really, really, really positively. So that's my story, I guess.
Good story today. Yeah, that's quite. Like you say, I mean, a very good whistle stop. Tom, I want to sort of take it. One of the questions that sprung in my mind when you sort of said about, because I'm keen to explore like how, like, do you think the estate agency background has helped in terms of mortgages? But one question I got is, you've gone from recruitment, which it's I know a little bit about working in recruitment, and yeah, it's a bit of a tough gig. But did you charge the firm that recruited you for the thing, or did you give it yourself free of charge? Does that make sense? As in,
No, they would have got me free of charge. Yeah, uh,
I was
yeah.
thinking if you
Needless to
take
say,
on recruiting yourself and you charge them a fee for you joining.
yeah, yeah, obviously done all off the books, so should we say, I suppose. So yeah, I was looking, and met with several people, and obviously I knew them well. Actually, had a friend who I'd placed, well, not I placed there, but our firm had placed there previously, who was working there, and I'd seen him rise up through the ranks, and had positive things to say about them. So
Right.
yeah, I knew them pretty well, knew what to expect, and so yeah, joined them.
I suppose if
Yeah,
you are recruiting people into that world, you're recruiting people into that firm, and you work very closely with that firm as from a recruitment point of view, you're going to know them pretty well. So you're giving yourself a bit of a head start, aren't you, really, in terms of the firm, the culture, what it's all about, because you're going to know that for recruiting for them. You know what kind of person works well, what doesn't work well for them. So yeah, you edge your bets a little bit, shall we say, and give yourself a good fighting chance to make it successful.
yeah, I knew they weren't going to be a Foxton's model or something where you were, which is what I was sort of coming from with the recruitment world. The recruitment company that I worked for was really, really good. They were great, and when you were sort of just moved down to London, they were really fun. Lots of sort of team incentives and nights out and things like that. But I didn't want to carry on that sort of very structured approach as well. You had sort of call times up on boards around the screen. All your KPIs were heavily monitored, but I didn't. That was a part of it that I didn't really like it. I think when you eventually go self-employed, that's often I think what I was looking for was moving away from that being managed situation, and a bit more freedom to to trust to operate how you wanted to. And I knew that was kind of how this company worked. Obviously, they had expectations of you, but they weren't going to micromanage you down to
Right,
minute
which is
detail.
obviously totally different to the large corporates that we all know in terms of the micromanagement side of things. So going back to when you look at your time as an estate agent and understanding that and recruiting as well for estate agent, did that help you in terms of has that helped you in terms of from a being a mortgage broker point of view from being successful as you've been so far?
I'd say the estate agency side has recruitment less to do with it. I mean, it was a great um, uh, you know start in terms of just getting you into the sales world, and just not being afraid to pick up the phone and all that sort of stuff, and being proactive, all those sort of things that help. But less so with mortgages. But in terms of getting to know the whole process and seeing it from the other side with estate agents, I work a lot with first time buyers, and being able to help hold their hands and try and translate the conversations they're having with estate agents, and sift out what is truth from what is estate agents speak, with regards to when they're putting offers in. Oh, we've had 3 other offers. Have they know? It's trying to wheedle out what's truth and what's not. And when you come from the other side, you can sort of see that this is what they're telling you, and you can try and coach first time buyers a bit through that process, and not necessarily just first time buyers, but anyone purchasing through that process of dealing with an estate agent, with probably what is the reality of what's going on behind the scenes. So it's definitely helped with that, and definitely helped with just knowing the process, knowing what to expect and when to expect it. Worked very closely with solicitors when I was an estate agent. We were sort of relatively, the office I was in was relatively low volume, so we probably do sort of aiming for 1 sale a week essentially, in our branch. We weren't hugely high volume, so it was you would sort of look after buyers and clients quite closely, and work closely with solicitors to manage them through the process. So got to pick up a lot of what solicitors do, and that sort of side of things as well. So yeah, that definitely helps with helping buyers through their purchase process as well.
I think it does. Like it's interesting you say that because I know quite a few people that have moved from being estate agents. I would like my background was in that world. I know I've recruited negotiators and branch managers into mortgage services and given them a chance. I think it's sort of it's interesting you said that because like it does really help when you're learning to become a mortgage broker. That is a whole new world, a whole new sort of industry for you. If you've come from a estate agency background, you get to understand the jargon, the terminology, the process, the good, the bad, and the ugly with regards to the whole process from a sale, from buying and selling houses point of view. So I think because you understand that and you've been through that kind of world, you're not having to learn that as well when you're just learning about mortgages because you've already had some. You know what an AIP is. You know what a decision principle is. If you've worked with closely with a mortgage broker in your estate agency branch, then you've got a good idea in terms of how they're without getting you're not sat at their desk day in day out and dealing with the ups and downs and roller coaster ride of being a mortgage broker. But at least you've got a fighting chance. At least you've given an idea. Now, it's quite interesting. You've like you said it because that's my experience too. And some estate agents do fail, like not fail. That's probably not the wrong word. Go back. Like, but I'll see it as a failure. Going back to the other side. I think, like you said about come on to this side. I think there's a couple of people that I know that have gone from estate agency to mortgages and then back onto estate agency because that's what they knew and that's what they wanted to do. But they've gone self-employed as a mortgage broker. And I think it's interesting to what you said with regards to that transition from estate agency to mortgage broker because one of the big things is about leads and lead generation when you're first starting out, particularly when you are self-employed. But you had a great opportunity that then I'm guessing you seized at the time thinking, I can go self-employed, but also as well, I've got leads coming in, which is a good situation to be in when you're first starting out.
Yeah, going back to your point on people coming to mortgage broking, going back to estate agency, I think I've definitely seen that a couple of times with colleagues that have made the switch and gone back. And I think it's so different in terms of the compliance aspects of it and the process of selling. There's literally or virtually no paperwork involved in for a negotiator selling a house versus selling a mortgage. You've got to do so much more paperwork, so much more admin side of things. I think that for me, the experience I've had with a couple that I know that have gone back, that's been the bit that they struggle with is they just want to sell things and not have to do all the compliance bit with it. So I think, but if you can get through that, or if you've got a head for it, then you can get on really well with being a mortgage broker. But like you say, that just won't fit with some people's personalities or what they're looking for from the sales bit of it. But in terms of the security net of having leads, going self-employed and having leads, that was always a thing that I needed. I knew I needed to have, and just going self-employed and not having that, I knew would be too much of a risk. So it was a really good balance, and I was fortunate to find something like that space. I'm not sure how many opportunities there are that will give you as consistent leads as I had, and it was and they were good. They were set up in such a way that they were keen to use you that situation. So there wasn't too much just sort of phoning. We weren't just phoning every buyer that registered, that sort of situation. They were more qualified with who they sent me away. So no, it was a really good route into the industry. It was quite tough in terms of support was lacking. I suppose that was the only bit that was difficult. It was because you're self-employed. It was there you go, get on with it. And I think because I'd done a couple of mortgages and done some protection from where I'd come previously, I think they perhaps thought I knew more than I did, certainly about mortgages at that stage. And so there was a lot of, there were some tough times in terms of finding your feet and struggling with, you're meeting with clients who have an expectation that you do know what you're talking about, and perhaps that's that early stages you don't necessarily know what you're talking about, but you quickly build up the knowledge, or the ways of delaying conversations until you do know what they're asking about, and you do know exactly the criteria. I mean, as you go through and you get more experience, you realise people don't expect you to know everything, but when you start, you sort of feel especially concerned that you don't. But so it was really good learning ground as well. There was some assistance. There were other brokers throughout the estate agency that you could lean on, and that would take your calls to talk through things. But equally, you didn't feel like you wanted to be calling them constantly. So anyone starting out, I guess that's something.
I think that's especially if they're self-employed as well, then they're going to be sort of thinking, we want to get on with earning some money, Chris, and by helping and supporting you, we're not earning any money right now. So I think it's like that's testament to you in terms of your character, because anybody that's listening to podcasts and thinking that's like going self-employed, you're getting leads provided, that sounds like a dream and that's like an ideal scenario. But actually, from what you've said there, you've highlighted a real good point, is that that's all well and good if you're getting the leads, but if you're drowning in those leads and you don't know what to do with it, you're not getting the help and support and somebody that you can turn to, you've got leads coming at you, you've got an estate agent coming at you as well saying, we need to be getting these leads converted, and you're not getting that help and support to turn them round and convert them as you should be doing. That must have been, like I say, testament to you, and that must be like a massive learning curve at the time, thinking you're thrown into the deep end, you've got these leads coming at you, you've got a bit of help from with other brokers' point of view, but you've got to get on with it yourself. You've got to learn yourself, you've got to develop yourself at that particular time. So how did that make you? How were you feeling? What were your thoughts when you first sort of went into this world? Can you remember?
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, it was a highly stressful time of life. We just, not long had our first child, and we had second child. I started with that estate agency in September, had our second child in November. So two under two.
Wow.
And my wife then goes on maternity, reduced pay. So there was a lot of stress in terms of financial side of life, and that was the bit I found more difficult. Was just you were so keen to get earning decent money as quickly as possible, that bit was harder, and because I'd made this commitment to go self-employed, and that was what I wanted to do, probably not what my wife wanted me to do. She'd have much preferred I got an employed job, or maybe stayed in an estate agency where I was earning all right money. So I sort of, you just had it in your mind, sort of got to make it work. So if you're having difficulties with those, knowing where to turn and what to do and all that sort of stuff, and how to convert people, you just it was just a mindset of I've just got to get on with it. And luck versus skill. I think it was more luck than I think, just with the timing of it all, in terms of the market still being really good. And if you're in a situation where you've got 3 or 4 people offering on a property, and they can get one of them to come and see you, offers a similar, they can, not the sort of Connell's route of selling it, but there's a way of presenting it. You present an offer, say, look, we will have more control over this deal. These guys are obviously really keen to buy it because they're using our broker, they're using our solicitors, etc. They're more likely to get through the process. The conversion side of things was easier because of that timing thing, and that was a bit more luck than it was anything to do with me necessarily.
You're not very good at boosting your ego there, Chris. To be fair, you're being very humble, which is fine on the podcast. It's fine.
I don't know. I think so. All the brokers that were in the estate agents at that time, we were all sort of doing. It wasn't like I was way better than anyone else. We were all sort of doing really well together. And there were some that had been there longer that were doing better because they had remortgages and things like that coming through. But it was. I'd say it was more tough on the being self-employed aspect to it than it was just that lack of certainty than it was on the sort of the doing the job. I do remember it being difficult learning the ropes, but I think that period of time was a lot shorter than the self-employed aspect, and getting up and running, having consistent income in mortgages takes a lot longer than you think it's going to. Especially we sort of fees paid on completion, so your prop fee and your broker fee both paid on completion. So you're waiting a long time to start to see that income come in, and that income be consistent as well. So that aspect of it I think was more difficult than just trying to get your head around things.
I think it is from what you're saying, and from the way that I'm hearing it, is that you very much you said you wanted to go self-employed, you wanted that freedom, and you had that drive. Persistence is a massive word, because it could have been easy to take the easier route of going employed. You could have been employed as a broker, done the 6 days a week as you were doing as a estate agent, and that would have been any different, but that would have been the safer option, especially with like two under two. That's a massive thing. So you've got that drive and motivation to make sure that you've sort of giving your word to your wife and said, look, I want to go self-employed. This is what I want to do. You had to make it work. There was so obviously you put that stress and pressure on yourself. However, that's driven you on and motivated you on, and giving you that, like I say, the real big persistence to then think, you know what, I have to make this work. There was no choice, but you had to make it work, didn't you? It was like, literally, this has to work for you, because the financial burden that you're putting on yourself at the time, and especially with your wife saying that this is what I wanted to do, and going against a harsh word, but maybe like not quite what she wanted you to do, to go down that route. You're smiling, so obviously you must have been in that situation at the time. But
no, she was supportive, definitely was supportive. I don't want to paint her as not being supportive. I really was. She's really thinking.
I told you to go self-employed. Yeah, don't worry, backpedaling a bit, it's fine. Now that was just I'm glad we cleared up the interpretation for your wife, to make sure if she does listen to the podcast, she was supportive. So we need to get that clear.
I doubt she's going to listen, but yeah, no, she definitely was supportive, and I'm just really into what she would have I think really been thinking. Life at that stage probably would have been easier, but life now is is so much better that I do have the freedom. I do all the drop-offs, all the pickups from school and nursery, and able to help out so much more. When we had our third child, because I was working from home, the number of times I got handed a baby just to hold him for a bit, and things like that. Things that you couldn't have done if I was employed. Definitely an estate agency, still going into an office 5-6 days a week. It's short-term pain for long-term gain, I think, in that sense. And don't get me wrong, there were times as well I did in the sort of early to mid stages where I started thinking, I was looking at an employed roles as well, and I'm glad I didn't go down that route. But sort of there was a wobble period that I had where I sort of looked about going back into, because as much as you say, you have to make it work, there's always a fallback if you can get an employed job, but equally, if you push through, then the rewards are there. So tough times, but definitely worth it for where we're at with work-life balance and things like that, and being around to help with kids and things like that now.
Cool. So clearly self-employed was always part of the plan. You wanted to have that freedom. When you first started out, you obviously within the estate agency, you must be trading under somebody else's style or trading as somebody else's firm. Was it always part of the plan that you wanted to have your own trading style and your own brand? Was that always something you wanted to do and strive to have?
No, neither was being self-employed, but it sort of sounds like it was. It sounds like I had a plan. I didn't have a
Yeah.
plan.
We'll
It's
cut
just,
that bit
it's
out. If you always had a plan, we'll cut that bit out. No, 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 I'm joking. No, obviously, yeah. No, I
it
appreciate
just,
you being honest as well. That's good.
yeah, it's just worked out the way, and and you know, obviously I tried a few different jobs in my time, and you find what you like about it, and obviously the being self-employed thing. When I first went self-employed, I was self-employed at the protection, the insurance company, as well, and there was other employed jobs that I was looking at. As going in as estate agency, employed mortgage broker, and it was it's that aspect of it that attracted me, being self-employed, but it wasn't necessarily a plan. And equally, having my own trading style then was also not a plan. It came up in just sort of conversation. At a meeting, could I have my own website? Could I have my own Google page to generate leads and things like that? And they sort of agreed to it. And then I just went away and did it essentially, and built a website. Put it up. They were obviously happy for me to do that because it meant I was bringing in more leads. They were taking a decent cut of those leads and that business. So it benefited them from that perspective. Obviously, it did benefit them in the sense that I was then able to move away, and because I was able to generate my own leads through that. So, but no, there wasn't a plan. I think I've probably have always wanted to run my own business in the sort of back of my mind, and we tried some things with my wife in the past at Amazon FBA when we were both employed. So we've tried, and we've got that sort of, my wife now is self-employed and trying to build a business as well. So we both sort of got that in us, I think. Obviously, my dad had his own business, family business. So there's something maybe in the blood that I wanted to do it, but perhaps didn't know how to, and it just it's worked out that mortgage broking is sort of a low risk, low cost way of doing it, especially the way that I've been fortunate enough to have done it. Getting the leads, building up a bit of a client base, building up a bit of a brand whilst still getting leads, all that sort of stuff. Been fortunate that I could do that, and then so each step of the process has been sort of as low risk and as easy as is possible, I suppose. So no, there wasn't a plan, just luck and timing and those sorts of things.
I know, but the thing is, like you say, there wasn't a plan, but actually there was a plan to keep it as low risk as possible. I'm guessing because you did keep it low risk, which is part of like why you've been as successful as you have. Because like you say, people will go high risk from the start. They'll literally cost wise, particularly, is a big thing, which I see is why people fail, because then they'll go very heavy on spending, but then thinking they're going to generate the income but they don't. But one thing, like, so when you look at, because you are prolific on Google, you are number one mortgage broker on Google in Stratford upon Avon and like your local area. So when you talk about brand, and obviously that was part of the plan. You didn't have a plan. Sorry, it wasn't part of the plan because you didn't have a plan. But what, without giving your secrets away in terms of how and what you've done, number one in Stratford, number one on Google, number one on the maps and things like that. That must take, and again, a lot of learning, drive, persistence to get there. Again, was that always you knew that was that part of what you wanted to achieve from the start, or is that something that you just found out as you sort of went along, really?
Listen, basically my secret, if you will, is listening to podcasts. The lead engine one, Alex Curtis, Ash Borland's, yourself. That's obviously how I found you. It was just listening to them and putting those things, especially with the Google, putting that into practice. It just seemed like it's such a sort of easy thing to do, I suppose. Really, is just do some deals and just make sure they leave a review. Most people are more than happy to do it, and if you ask enough times, they eventually will do it. So yeah, that's how I've just done it by learning what other people have done and have had success with. They're fortunate enough that they've shared enough of their knowledge to allow me to pick and choose and do what they've done and have been successful with, and just implement that. The website. So I did it all myself originally. I've just had someone redo it for me to make it look a bit more professional. But it was just very basic, following that. Again, what they said was, have a picture of yourself on there. The brand is obviously just my name, so they know who they're going to be dealing with. Picture of yourself, calls to action on the website. I had very basic information on there, but it seems people, as long as they can see you've got good reviews, and like I say, as long as you're getting in front of people by being on top of Google, if you can get there, or just be ranking on Google somehow, then it makes life a lot easier. The social media side of it, I've toyed with. I don't love doing it, but do enough of it that it has generated me some leads. But I think also it's just about having a presence that if people do find you on Google, find you on Instagram, find you on LinkedIn, wherever they might look for you, that there's some sort of level of consistency, and they can see what you're doing and that sort of stuff on there as well. So that's how I've just learned from others who have done it, basically, and who are willing to put their knowledge out. I've always listened to loads of podcasts, winds my wife up because I've always got my headphones in, but they've helped certainly with business from that perspective.
I think that it's obviously pleasing to hear, not from my own podcast point of view, but I think there is people within the industry that are willing to share, and people, I've said it many times before, brokers that come into the industry new are pleasantly surprised how many people out there are willing to share their knowledge. I think the thing is with it is that you've listened to that knowledge, you've listened to those lessons that those people learn, and people that have actually done it, you've taken those and actually acted on that. Whereas people listen to it, then don't act on it or do something else, or just listen to it because they say they're listening to it, but then they don't actually do anything with that learning. So you've testament to that in terms of what you've done and what you've achieved with regards to the brand in your local area. You've got to that number one spot, and you're working hard now. I'm lucky enough to know that you achieved that number one spot, but you continue to work hard to make sure that you maintain that number one spot as well. Because obviously it's okay getting there, but then you've got to make sure that you stay there as well. With regards to reviews, was that, again, you knew you always had to do that? And what part of the process are you using? Google, obviously. When do you ask for the reviews? How do you ask for the reviews? And was that always something that's part of your process?
Not when I first started out, because there wasn't a huge benefit to me if I was driving reviews to another company. But as soon as there was, I had my website set up and there was going to be benefit to me, and that came from being told this is what you should do, and in terms of when I asked for it, I think I used to ask on completion, but now I always ask on mortgage offer. Ring them and give them the good news, mortgage has been offered, talk through next steps, etc., and then just end the conversation with, have you been happy, and would you mind leaving me a review? Most people, like I say, will say yes, and then just follow up with an email with a link to make it nice and easy for them to do it. And then if they don't do it, just continue asking until they do.
You've got it written in the mortgage offer, Chris, part of a condition in the mortgage offer that they have to do a review.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Must be 5 stars. No, obviously not doing that. But it's sort of a bit shameless in a way, but there's I don't think there's sort of any harm in doing it. I think it also, this might just be my ponderings, but I think it also reinforces them to sort of remind them, and actually was like, he did really, did do a really good job for us, and they're actually putting it down in writing, and hopefully that means when it comes to remortgage, it sort of cemented that relationship a little bit more with them, and it means that business retention should be good.
Excellent. So when you look at like now, obviously in terms of, we've talked about your past in a state agency, we've talked about where you like the experience and the challenges they face from going self-employed straight away as a mortgage broker, and where you are now. What's the plans for the future? Is anything that you're aspiring to? Is any goals that you're looking for now moving forward, or is it just stability and cement what you've on the foundations that you've laid?
Growth, probably, I guess. Obviously, you well know I've got hopefully someone joining me in the next month or so, and I guess it would be to eventually remove myself from advising and more be it business owner and just driving the growth of the business, increasing leads and dealing with that side of it, and letting others deal with the advice bit of it. I don't know whether I would always keep my hand in with some clients. Haven't decided that yet, but no, the idea would be growth. I'm trying to grow in other local towns as well, so just increasing brand awareness across South Warwickshire, and that's the goal. Obviously, eventually get to having several brokers, nice little business essentially. I haven't thought about it much beyond that really. At the moment, it was probably, if you asked me this 5-6 months ago, I would have been just saying I'll just be happy to consolidate with where the market was and where leads were sort of dropped off. But now we're back up with more inquiries than this time last year, and so hoping that it continues to grow essentially.
I think that's exciting times for you ahead, coming from responsibility to yourself. Obviously, you've got your family and your wife and in the background, but it's just that you are then taking on that commitment of you've got somebody else as part of the team. Somebody else, obviously, self-employed. You're taking them on as self-employed, but I think it's exciting times for you because you're going to continue to learn and develop whilst you are sort of growing. But then when you look at that, the mindset that you have with regards to you went straight in as self-employed as a mortgage broker. You're now looking to grow your business and expand it rather than just you, and that's part of your plans. But without you without using the word blueprint, I don't know any word that we can use to it, but you've got what you've done since you become a broker and you become number one in your local area. You've got that blueprint, you know what works. It's still a challenge, but it's easy to replicate that in like you say, as you're expanding your areas out to other towns and cities in your local area and growing that circle or square or whatever it looks going to be looking like. But it's easy to do that because again, you're giving yourself a far greater chance of success because you've already built that yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, you make it sound like I know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm always learning. I'm always trying to figure out what I'm doing. What
nobody knows what they're doing, Chris. Nobody on the planet knows what they're doing. So don't even worry about if I sound like if I'm making it sound like I know what you're doing, then fine. But yeah, nobody knows what they're doing. We're all winging it. We're all just getting day by day and just growing and doing and learning. But the thing is with it is you are learning and developing yourself whilst you're getting on with that. You know that you've been lucky. You've been very honest in that, like what you said, in terms of what you've achieved and where you've come from and what you've done. You've been given, like on the podcast, you've given me a very honest account of yourself in terms of what you've done. And I didn't expect anything different, knowing been lucky enough to know you now for as long as I have. Whereas, like, it's like moving forward, it's still you still know that you need to develop. You're still going to be learning. You're still going to be making mistakes. You're still going to be challenging yourself. But you've got that drive and persistence and a few mouths to feed sat in the background, sat behind that door behind you, to making sure that you make it a success. But don't worry, everybody's winging it. Nobody knows what they're doing on the planet. Don't worry about that. No, nobody does.
No, well, it's
So
yeah, it's trial and error, isn't it? It's see
yeah,
if it works. There's all sorts of marketing things that I have tried and don't know if they work necessarily. Money spent that you're not going to get back, but always relatively low risk things, and you sort of you give them a go and see if it works, and yeah, move on from there. But obviously, we've just discussed the ones that have been successful, which is great.
Chris, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Finally, we get you on the podcast, and I'm so pleased that we've now got that recorded, because it was a great story. It's a great journey. I knew you're going to be very honest in terms of what you've done and what you've achieved. You're very humble around that as well, and you know that you're going to continue to grow and continue to learn. So yeah, been a great guest, been a great podcast to record, great episode to record. So thanks very much for coming on, and thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks for that, Chris. Thanks for agreeing to finally come on to the podcast. Thank you so much for being honest and sharing your journey, your experiences, your challenges, where your head was at certain points during in a short period of time from when you've been into mortgage broking, and again sharing your goals and what your aspirations look like for the future. I think people have taken a lot from that, and yeah, it was a great podcast to record. And thank you so much for doing that. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. If there are any comments, thoughts, feedback, please leave them on whichever format please leave them in the comments on whichever format you listen to the podcast. Any suggestions for guests moving forward, then again, please message me, put them in the comments, anything like that. Please make sure you subscribe to the new daily podcast that's coming out, The Morning Mindset, which I will tag into and share as part of this podcast. So yeah, please subscribe to that. If you're subscribing to the Mortgage Broker broadcast, I'm hoping you subscribe to the daily the Morning Mindset as well, which will help. And as always, if you're considering becoming a self-employed mortgage broker, or you're looking to start your own mortgage broker brand and business, or you're looking to accelerate your growth of the existing business you have, then visit my website, craigskeleton.co.uk. Reach out, any questions, any thoughts, message me, book your discovery call, and let's explore how I can help and support you achieve your goals and achieve your aspirations and achieving what you wanted to do with your business and with you as a person and a human being. And as always, don't forget to run your own race.